Welcome back to another episode of At the Bar. You can see our setup for this session is a little different given the situation that we're currently in under quarantine. So we're going to be doing a virtual series coming up, meeting with different athletes virtually through Zoom. So I'm Brad Marshall, and today I'm joined with Stephanie Colby. So Stephanie, thanks for joining us today.
No problem.
And Stephanie, we're going to kick it off with you just giving us a little bit more about yourself, telling us who you are.
I'm actually Brad's coworker. We met a few months ago, and we hit it off pretty easily because we started talking CrossFit, and what better connect people than people's CrossFit journey. So I work for the same company as Brad does, and I am also an athlete. So I was an athlete in high school and in college, and then after college I was an elite athlete. And now I am a master's level athlete, which I think is familiar to many CrossFit athletes. But I actually do it for track and field. So I am a pole vaulter still and a decathlete.
Awesome. A variety of athlete or athletic experiences that you've gone through, and now as a master's athlete. So talk us through a little bit about your athletic background and your athletic experience.
Yeah, goodness. How far back do you want me to start? I actually started in gymnastics, like probably many little girls do, either in like dance or gymnastics. I started probably around maybe about 5 years old. I have an older sister who was also in gymnastics, and I wanted to be just like her. So of course I followed a little bit in her footsteps. Having a 5-year-old now, it was probably easier also for, our mom and dad to get us off into one place and not have to go too many different stops. But started off in gymnastics, and I did that competitively through high school. I was on a club gymnastics team up until about my sophomore year when I had a back injury. So I stopped the club aspect of it, but still competed in high school. And at that same time, I actually, because of that injury, found track and field. With that back injury in gymnastics, I know you've met me in person. I'm fairly a tall gymnast to begin with. And so I had grown 4 inches during the time that I was recovering from that injury. So I needed something else to do. So I picked up track and field and all the quote unquote fun events. So at the time it was high jump, long jump, hurdles, none of this long distance running type stuff. I wanted like the short and quick ones that get you from point A to point B or jumping over different things. So I ended up getting a track scholarship, University of Rhode Island, to do the pentathlon. So it's 5 events. I was a hurdle specialist at that time. And then going into my junior year of college, they started having women's pole vault. Prior to that, it was, 1997, 98. Prior to that, women's pole vault wasn't an event that was contested at the NCAA level. And going into the 2000 Olympics, that was the first time that they had women's pole vault at the Olympics. So because I had that gymnastics background and then the track and field and like the sprinting and hurdling and jumping, I was just really interested in trying pole vault, and I did and got good quickly. And I won't say like the rest is history, but I spent a lot of time at the track, ended up being an elite pole vaulter, competed internationally in Japan and Taiwan, competed after college as well on kind of the open circuit. And then, had the rest of my life going on, had a daughter, got married, got jobs, lost jobs, moved many times. I've since picked it back up again to be more of like an athlete.
Yeah. And so anytime I think we talk to athletes, we realize, hey, they're very structured, guided. The coach is giving them programming and helping them figure out what's going on and what's the best way for them to get better. And then as they transition out of athletics, a lot of people are left with, I don't really know where to go or what to do. So tell us a little bit about what you've worked on since finishing up your collegiate career and some of the things that you've enjoyed in terms of your fitness after finishing.
Yeah, so that's actually just a really good point, because so we went from college to after college where I was an elite athlete. And although I did have jobs really my focus and my job was to be the best pole vaulter I could at that time. And I did that for about 2 or 3 years. And then when I retired, I don't say quit or stop, when I retired, and now I've unretired, but we won't get to that right now. When I retired from being an elite athlete, there was a huge gap. First of all, just the time like that you suddenly have, I just didn't even know what to do with myself. I also didn't like naturally fall into like, well, now I have this time and I'm going to apply that to something else. It wasn't like another sport right away, or it wasn't another hobby. Like it was nice to just sit back because, as I told you, like from the time that I was, as long as I can remember, through high school, through college, through after college, my days were defined by going to school and practice and homework. And, you know, it was very like regimented because you had to be able to fit everything in. And now it was all this free time that I had. I wouldn't say that I like used it to my advantage or to my benefit, but it was nice to just like take a step back. It was probably some of my unhealthier times of years after that, just because I didn't like find anything. But after a little bit, I found, you know, some just fun activities that I either couldn't or didn't know I could try because I was so focused on track and field and pole vaulting. For instance, when I moved to Baltimore, we had a rowing, like a recreational Baltimore rowing, where you get in like the 8-seater boats and they teach you how to row, and it's 3 times a week. And I went there, and it was amazing. And it was the first like cardio that I'd ever done that I wasn't just totally like mind-numbingly bored right off the bat, because it's so technical to actually be in a boat versus like a rowing machine now, and being on the water and being part of literally this team of 8 other people that have someone behind you in front of you, like they call it catching a crab, like gets their oar like stuck in the water. It affects everybody. So that was just like so challenging and different in a way I had never experienced before. And I just really liked that. And then I found one that was maybe more suited to that like gymnastics pole vaulting. I ended up taking a course or a class in flying trapeze in, well, it wasn't Baltimore at the time, but in DC, they have trapeze school. They have one in New York, LA, and many people just do it like you would consider skydiving. Like I'm just gonna try it and do it once and then be done with it. But I went once, and then I was like, okay, well now I want to learn like the next trick and then the next trick. And because of my background, I actually learned them pretty quickly. So like I started just going more frequently, and I ended up actually in like a professional circus show, like flying without the safety lines and everything. So that was really fun because again, it was something that wasn't like working out is no longer your job, but it was more of that hobby, and that, you know, my best friends at the time were all part of that community, and we all talked about circus stuff, as you can certainly probably apply it to like something like CrossFit. Like you get other CrossFitters and you talk about CrossFit and different stuff, right? So there's like a circus type community. And I really only stopped that because of the commute. It ended up being far, especially once after I had my daughter. You know, it was just a time kind of commitment of a 2-hour class plus a 2-hour commute both ways. And so I'd probably still be doing that now if it wasn't so far away, I'd say.
Yeah, so it sounds like challenge and something that brings you joy are really the key components to finding something that you're going to stick with. And it's interesting you mentioned sort of the ebb and flow. I think we've all experienced of moments where, hey, I'm committed, I'm dedicated, I'm continuously going to whatever that exercise or habit is. And then we have those moments where it's like, all right, I don't know what to do with myself. Maybe I'm tired of it. So it's cool to hear the different ebbs and flows that you've gone through. And maybe talk us through a little bit about what it was like when you transitioned into being a mom and having a family, and how did that impact your ability to focus on sort of your health and fitness?
Yeah, I mean, I think that changes everything, right? I mean, prior to having her, it was, well, first myself and then myself and my husband, and my days were defined by whatever the heck I wanted to do, and I could go down and spend 5 hours down at trapeze and it was fine, And so obviously outside of the physical aspect of, getting pregnant and being pregnant and then having a child and like all the physical changes that your body is like going through because of that, after that, it definitely was a point where you're trying to weigh being like the best parent that you can and the time commitment that you obviously need to spend like raising this child, but also in the back of my head, like I know I was a wellness professional and have an exercise science degree, that I need to spend time on myself as well. And I should be going out and going for even a 20-minute walk, or 10 minutes, getting some fresh air out of the house. But then it's like, but I just had a whole day of work and I have to feed her and I'm not going to get to see her because she goes to bed at 7:00. Like you weigh all those things. So once I get back into it, that's what kind of when actually I found CrossFit, because it was an hour and I was like, I can commit an hour. I picked like the closest box, to me, less than 10 minutes to get over, and I went to, I think it was either like a 7 or a 7:30 class at the time. So it was after she was in bed and I was like, okay, I'm either going to be like watching TV or I can at least commit like a couple days a week to, going and working out myself. And it really helped me like back on that path. But, back to your point as well, I think that, finding something, whatever it is that makes you happy, even if it's just because you like to see somebody's face, like in the gym, like the working out itself, like doesn't make me that happy. Like I don't like to do like burpees and, be like sucking wind so hard, but I did like the people that I saw and the camaraderie. So finding like that type of whatever it may be or wherever it is just really important, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing how we can find not just the personal benefits of improved health or whatever it might be, but also some of those extra things we might not realize, the social camaraderie we might experience, some of those senses of accomplishment, working out together with other people and doing challenging things. So it's pretty cool to hear that experiences you had and how that kind of helped propel you, even though there was a lot of times where maybe it wasn't the number one priority or the thing that you were most looking forward to that day. One of the things I want to ask you about and talk about is the idea of mindset and thinking through, you've done a lot of different things. You were an athlete at one point in time. So, anytime we talk to different athletes and think about that competitive nature and then transition that into health and fitness beyond, it's always interesting to see how does the role health and fitness play in their mindset, whether it's in the gym, out of the gym, whatever that might be. So I'm curious to hear from you. What are some of your thoughts as you think about that? How mindset has played a role both in and out of the gym in your life?
Yeah. Well, I think in the gym, it plays a huge mindset for me now. I mean, whether, again, be it CrossFit and just trying to beat my last time on Fran or whatever, or now with pole vaulting, trying to actually like be established like records that are in there. I think it's gives you a reason to participate or to push yourself, because I'm fairly young, 42, I think 42, always been generally healthy. And so to just work out just for the sake of like avoiding heart disease, hopefully 30 years in the future, or, whatever it may be, the exercise tied to these like health benefits were really like arbitrary and really far off for me, because I want to be able to wear a bikini, in the summer and have my summer bod, right? But like, there has to be more than that to really keep you going to the gym over and over again, when everything for me is generally healthy and generally fit. So that competitive aspect, or just small established goals, right? You have your short-term and your long-term goals, is just really applicable. I think if you want to keep some sort of fitness, and I'm using fitness loosely because I know it's like a CrossFit term, but it can be for whatever you do. Like people are doing triathlons or just walking, or I don't know. I have another Aetna colleague who does like those 50-kilometer runs. Like, talk about fitness, right? Like she's out there for hours. But whatever it is, like you have to be able to kind of have that goal beyond just like general health and fitness, or a means to an end. But definitely, I think that being an athlete, one, sets you up in a corporate environment much better than someone who's not an athlete. And maybe I'm just an athlete snob, but I think it gives you, again, that framework from an early age that you wake up early, you go to school, you go to practice afterwards, you know, you eat at a certain time, you do your homework, and you get things done. And I think like to break up your day versus, I don't know what the other kids did after school, but I always had something that I had to be to, or, you know, be at. I think it makes you think of how can I do this as quickly, efficient, as easy as possible, because you know you have like limited resources to give. And also with those resources, like, you know, okay, what you have to prioritize. Like, you know, I would always be like, okay, if I go to bed now, I'm going to get like this much sleep and to wake up to get the bus, or, you know, I might need to sneak in a nap between coming home and practice because this is like a longer practice day. So I think that those skills just naturally apply to like a corporate environment where you do need to manage your time. And especially most people have families that they have to juggle as well. And so when it's 5 o'clock, you're not just like checking out, like you're going and then transitioning to taking the kids off to wherever, fitting in your own workout, like just being able to manage time, I think, better in general.
Yeah, and I think some of the things I heard you say that are some common threads now is the idea of having a purpose, or having that why behind what you do, and letting that be something that guides and influences the behaviors, having a solid structure and habits, time management as well. And all of those things you took from your athletic background and applied them now in the corporate world, and then still getting a chance to be an athlete. One other piece I'm curious to hear from you on this idea of mindset is you're an athlete, grade school, high school, college, competed internationally for a little bit, now still competing. And like you mentioned, working towards setting and holding American records for pole vault. What are some of the biggest mindset skills you've used to help you as an athlete? When you think about things such as confidence, the ability to handle stress or pressure on the day of the actual meet, whatever it might be for you, what are some of the most important mental skills that you feel like you've used to achieve some American records?
Yeah. I think it's probably one of my weaker points, honestly. Maybe just because I feel like mindset training when I was coming up through like the elite realm was really one of those like arbitrary, like the sports psychologist was like this far off person that only like the elite athletes, like the elite of the elite, I will say, would ever get access to. But now it's really ingrained in our culture. More so like with apps that people can have on their phones, whether you're an athlete or not. But I think that we've embraced more of this, what is it, Eastern or Western culture, whatever culture, of like the mindset and mindfulness and yoga and meditation. I mean, no one did yoga, and I'm not that old again, like, but 20 years ago, like not many people were doing yoga, maybe in like California where people were considered like a little bit more new age, but it really is more ingrained. So I am trying to do more of it. But back in the day, it was really just a lot of visualization. That seems to be something that people could pick up on. I remember my mom even telling me, you know, like, concentrate. She'd be in the stands and she'd be like, Stephanie, concentrate. And she'd go like this. That was like her signal for me to concentrate. But she meant to not only concentrate, but like to do my routines, like in my head, whether it was gymnastics or you do it to focus. So I did do a lot of that, I'd say, or I did some of that. But now it's definitely something that I'm more interested in, because I'm also looking at my body is getting older. I'm not necessarily getting stronger. I'm trying to maintain what I had maybe had at one point. And getting stronger is a spectrum, right? So I'm not suddenly looking to make these huge gains in strength or speed. You know, at some point there's those diminishing returns. But I feel like the mindset can be something that doesn't. I mean, there's no limit to those types that I've seen. And also, like we've spoken about, like just being able to control like drinking, eating, like those are easy things that don't require a lot of other things. Sleep, all through our handy like Whoop app, stress, you know, like all of those things I'm really been paying more attention to, because those are variables I can control. Outside, a lot of stuff that I can't control the coronavirus, you know, and us not traveling for work, and I can't control that I now have to homeschool my daughter, but like those are things that are in my control. And also, again, like the mindset ones are like limitless, you know, you can always improve. And I don't think, maybe, you know, I'll toss the question back to you, if there's like a point where you get so good that you don't need it anymore, or you just get older and it doesn't apply to you anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. What you brought up there is a variety of really, really effective, powerful tools, things such as visualization, present moment focus, with just being fully engaged in whatever task we're doing. You talked about the ability of making good decisions and building in, once again, those habits, so that, yes, I'm getting enough sleep, and yes, I'm taking care of my body. And what's really fascinating with that is, if you ask if there's an endpoint, I would say probably not necessarily an endpoint. There's always nuances we can learn and develop. There might be some skills where you say, hey, this is a point where I needed a little bit more. Like, my confidence has been struggling because I haven't been hitting the numbers maybe I'd like to hit, or hitting the heights that I'd like to hit. So maybe that's something I got to think about. Or, hey, I find myself getting really distracted on the actual day of the meet. And for me, maybe that's something I want to improve. So what I think you find is that there's just nuances and different things that come up at different times depending on what you're going through, which I think is really fascinating as an athlete.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we hadn't touched on is like, even with the injuries, which I know that like many athletes have, and it can be like short-term or long-term. And I think a mindset as a master's athlete that I didn't have, or is different than I had when I was a younger athlete, was that, 3 years ago, I ruptured my Achilles tendon. Was running down the runway, blew it out, you know, all the bells and whistles, needed surgery. So Achilles injuries and surgeries generally have a pretty long recovery period. But I remember at the time, there was one of the women, and this was a master's competition. She was maybe like 60-ish. She had come up to me like almost right after I had hurt myself. And probably at the time I was like, what the heck are you want? Why, go away. Like, that's not what I want to talk about now. She said like, essentially, you'll be back from this, but not only will you be back, she gave me like the reasoning why. And this was interesting and really changed my frame. When you hurt yourself in college or in high school, you're looking at like the 4-year window of opportunity. You hurt yourself your junior year, you're thinking ahead already, like, well, I know an Achilles injury, that's like a year recovery, and then like I have to get back, so will I even have a senior year, and then I might be done. So like they talk about career-ending injuries, because you're thinking about all that time, and then even if it happens earlier, like, will you ever be the same after that? Well, with a master's, it's 50 years, right? Like, this woman had a hip replacement, ACL surgery. Like, she was 20 years older than me at the time. And between like 40 and 20, she had all these things like that happened to her, because just life happens, right? But there was no like end, like, oh, well, you have to get better or recover before this happens. So she was like, you will be back. You'll be back whenever you're able to, if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And although we do have our own, like, we have age groups, so you want to kind of be healthy before, you know, you go at the end of your age group, which is a little bit tougher competition wise. Like, it was just a really interesting mindset with like that. We always talk about fitness for life, right? Where track can be one of those things that you do for life. Like, there are literally 90 and 100-year-old people that are competing that maybe didn't even pick up track until their 50s or 60s. So they're like, have been doing it just as long as I have, but started way later. And it's just like a really interesting point that she kind of put in my head, that like, this isn't the end. Like, you can literally compete for like 40 more years. Like, as long as you've been on this earth, double that. And, you know, so much is going to happen to you. And it's just how you roll with it and how you overcome those things. And so I thought that was just like really interesting. I thanked her since for that, because it was just like changed my mind. I was such in that, like, I only have, you know, a short amount of time. I must do it then. And because of this, and it's actually not the case once you get past a certain point, because we're doing it for fun and for fitness and for life, right?
Yeah, I love that framework and that mindset. Is so many times we have such a hard end stop, end of high school, end of college, the wedding, or the summer to look a certain way. And so we have all these hard end dates, but it's interesting when you sort of broaden it and now take more of that. Hey, this is a marathon. This isn't just a sprint of get as fit as I can for this one moment in time, but it's going to look a lot of different ways. It's going to take a lot of different shapes, but if we can extend it out, this is just a constant journey.
Right.
I love it. And I think that's a great place for us to find some closure with this conversation. So I want to give you the last word here, and I want you to share, what would you say to somebody who maybe is out there and they're, you know, thinking about, how do I continue either along my journey or start my health and fitness journey based on your experiences as an athlete and everything you've been through?
Yeah, I would say find something that you like. You might not love it right away, or just something that's always interested you. I mean, I didn't think I'd do like rowing, you know, or trapeze, but these are like fun activities that ultimately then you want to stay in shape for, right? I needed to stay in shape so I could do trapeze, but trapeze itself wasn't necessarily getting me in shape. So it's finding whatever that is, you know, and it doesn't have to be run a marathon or, you know, climb Mount Everest, but maybe just getting into climbing would be fun, you know, doing rock climbing or something that's like small for one. And, you know, if you don't love it, you're not going to want to do it. You know, on those days where it's rainy and cold out and you don't want to work out, you already have like all this stuff. But if you can at least be like, okay, once I get there, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to see the people I like, you know, that makes it like really worth doing for me. So find whatever that is for you.
Yeah, I think that's such a great message that I think has come through consistently, is find what you enjoy doing and then just start. Yeah. So Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And if you liked our conversation today, feel free to like and subscribe. We'll continue to bring you more conversations with athletes, talk about health and fitness, as well as mindset. We'll be doing more of these quarantine sessions, so you'll get a chance to see us on Zoom, which will be a little bit fun and unique opportunity. So thanks so much.
Thank you.